Okay, guys, good evening. It is 9:20 on Tuesday, May 23rd, 2017, 9:20 p.m. New York time. And I just want to make a quick video regarding some news for tomorrow that's coming out. And so let's go to the calendar here. So tomorrow morning, New York time, 10 a.m., we have the Bank of Canada. This is probably the one of the bigger risk events for the week. 10 a.m. the Bank of Canada rate, statement, and rate. Now, as you can see, and which is usually the case, they're not expected to change the rate, so the news will be in the statement. Now, the Bank of Canada has been, although their news hasn't been too bad lately, the market and the bank has still been fairly dovish of late on the Canadian dollar in general. So, as I said, the actual statement will be the key to this. And one of the other keys to this, Canada is a commodity, what we call a commodity currency, and for them it's mostly about oil. Their economy is very tied to the price of oil. So I'll just take a quick look here. This is WTI crude and Brent crude oil prices. There was some stuff in the news today about oil production in the U.S. being increased, and so there definitely are some pressures to oil. So this is the daily chart of both of these, and while the price has been going up recently, I believe this is just basically a correction. Eventually we'll see the price go back down again here, and pretty much the Brent crude looks exactly the same. So that's another piece of this. This is not generally something I look at, but for Canadian dollar, this is an important piece. So let's take a quick look at the charts. We'll look at a few Canadian pairs. Some are better than others. So now this is strictly from an Elliott Wave standpoint. So here we are on the Kiwi Canadian. Now, as you know, the Kiwi has been under a lot of pressure, although it has recovered most of that. This was last week when the Royal Bank of New Zealand had a very dovish statement. The Kiwi went down across the board, and it's pretty much recovered all of those gains, all of those losses. So if you look at the 1 hour chart here, again, this is only a 1 hour chart, but so and we still have 12 and a half hours till this news comes out. So a lot can change here, but the way it looks at the moment is that the Kiwi Canadian will go up. I'm basically looking at this action right here as a correction. So what I'll be looking for in the morning is for price to be somewhere down here again in this area. So overnight and early London, it'll correct to the downside. If I see it down in this zone around in here, I will be looking to buy this pair. Could even see it down as far as here, but anywhere down from about these lows to here, I would be looking to buy this back when the news comes out. So of course that would be negative for the Canadian. So let's look at a couple of other ones. Let's look at the Canadian Swiss. So this is the daily chart, and what I'm looking at, let me go down a little bit here. Let's say the 6 hour chart. You can see it around the 6 to 8 hour, but basically I'm looking at this as a trend, and so which means this will go down again once the news comes out, and this would complete the trend. Now again, we'll have to see. This is a 6 hour chart, so we'll draw two more candles on here before the news comes out. But again, if it's anywhere up around the level it's at now, or maybe even a little higher, then I think that would be a good sell opportunity. And even if it only goes back, now this is Canadian Swiss, there's not a lot of pips here, so it's probably only 75-80 pips if this goes and completes the trend. This is about as far as it would go. Okay, so that could be a short-term trade. Canadian yen kind of looks the same way. We had this steep move down, now we've had this corrective move back up, and you know, this isn't a really clear pattern. Of course, this is a yen pair, so you always have to be a little cautious, but I would say that this probably will go back down too, although again, it's not a really clear pattern. Aussie Canadian does not look good. I already looked at that before. Not a really good pattern on there. But of course, if the Canadian is going to be down, then of course the Aussie Canadian would go up. But it's probably not a pair I would trade in this event. And so here we are on the Euro Canadian. Now, of course, the Euro has been pretty strong lately. As you can see, most of the Euro pairs have been very strong the last few weeks. Really, since the French election, the Euro has rallied. So on this pair here, you know, this again is this 2-hour chart moving sideways. Again, if I'm seeing this correcting to the downside, anywhere around these levels, and we're just kind of meandering, then I would say this would be a nice trade to the upside on the Euro Canadian. But I also think that it may just be the last piece of that up move, and it may not be sustained. It could be a wave 5, could be the last piece of a wave 3, but it does look like it probably will go up. And seeing US Canadian, this is the daily chart, and I am looking at this move down as a correction. And if we go down a little bit more here, I would suspect that heading into the news tomorrow, we'll see price. I'll be looking for price to be selling off towards the news. This is a 4-hour chart, so we'll have, you know, we'll have 3 more of these drawn out. So if we see it anywhere down here, I'll be looking for this to go back up on this pair, and this probably would be to end a trend. But this is a daily chart, so it certainly will take more than 1 day for that to happen. And I didn't look at pound Canadian. So pound Canadian I actually really like. So here we are on the daily chart, and again, this is definitely a correction. Whatever this is a corrective move. So let me see if I can get a nice time frame look at this. So let me just look. I'm just doing this now as we're talking, guys. So it's 317 here to here. It's 370. So this is longer. I was thinking maybe this was an ABC, but this move down is longer, although that's not a deal breaker for this to be an ABC. But I think this really looks pretty positive on the daily chart for it to move back up. The CCI also suggests that here we have CCI going up compressed, and now here going down spread apart, making a cycle down, is suggestive of a move back up. So, and again, this is a daily chart, so you know, any type of move back to the upside here is going to be pretty significant. You know, it's a few hundred pips potentially. So my preference on this would be probably the pound Canadian #1. Oh, and what else? Did I look at Kiwi Canadian? I don't remember. Yeah, Kiwi Canadian looks like it wants to go up again. I think I already showed you this. Yeah, this looks like it will go up again, but there's not a lot of pips here. This is an hourly chart. I mean, might be 50 pips. Canadian Swiss definitely looks bearish, but then again, it's not a lot of pips. Canadian yen, if this follows through, this might be nice. If we get a follow through back to the downside, and yen pairs are pretty decent number of pips. And the Aussie Euro Canadian doesn't look particularly good to me, although we'll see where it is in the morning. If this is trading down, that might be a good trade. But I would say the pound Canadian #1 for potential long on this pair. Now I will say something just briefly about the Canadian dollar. Canadian dollar, in my opinion, can be a little tricky to trade. It's one of those pairs where you see a lot of the old buy the rumor, sell the fact, or if it's in a downtrend, sell the rumor, buy the fact. And then basically what that means is, heading into an event, the market will anticipate where the news is going to be. So let's say the news anticipated to be good, and so leading into the event, whether it's the day before or several days before, or it could be weeks before, the price is going up. And then when that day comes and the news is released and say it's positive, then all of a sudden the market turns and goes the other way. And so traders that don't know market psychology, don't know understand the fundamentals, get caught off guard because they just see a positive newsprint and they jump on, they buy, and then all of a sudden the market turns against them and they get stopped out and they get aggravated and frustrated. They get a big loss and they wonder why, and they say that news doesn't work because it did the opposite, and that's why. The market had been buying up that pair, that currency leading into it, and then once it comes out, even if it comes out that way, you may have one last little spike up, but basically it's already been priced into the market, and the market will then basically, people will start dumping and taking profits, and it ends the trend and goes the other way. Which is another thing about Elliott Wave, because Elliott Wave will point to the end of those trends, and you'll be able to see it on the chart to know that there's an end of a trend coming. And that news event, that buy the rumor, sell the fact, that is the final wave of the trend from an Elliott Wave standpoint. So that's where Elliott Wave can help you in terms of knowing the pattern in addition to the fundamentals. Okay, so the Canadian dollar is one of those that you have to be really careful of. That the news will come out and you'll initially see it go strong in the direction of the news, whether it be positive or negative, and then quickly reverse, within a short time, sometimes within an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours later, you'll see it reverse. And so I can see something like that happen on, say, the Kiwi Canadian, that this will, go up, retest this high, and that's it. I could see it on the Euro Canadian. I could see it on the Canadian Swiss to the downside, that this will go and just drop, and then that'll be it. Wave 1 being about the same length as wave 5. Here's wave 1. They'll drop 100 pips and then it'll be over. So let's say, tomorrow morning the price is up here somewhere. It drops 100 pips, makes a new low, and then it turns around, ends the trend, and starts to go back up. So I would just be very cautious about Canadian trades. I'm not saying don't take them, but be cautious, be very leery about a change of trend, especially on some of these pairs like the Canadian Swiss, the Kiwi Canadian, the Aussie Canadian. I'm not going to trade that one at all. I just didn't like the looks of it. The Euro Canadian potentially will make one more push up. This actually might be pretty short-lived. US Canadian could make one more push up. But now the only difference is on the Euro Canadian, the US Canadian, and the Pound Canadian is that I see the best pattern on the higher time frame. So this might go for a while. That's why I'm still saying the Pound Canadian is probably the best pair in my view as of right now. Okay, because this is a daily chart. Even if this is the last move up, it's going to go up 200 or 300 pips before that ends. So I probably would avoid something like the Kiwi Canadian because that could be a short-lived move just based on the pattern. And there's more pips in a pair like this anyways if you can tolerate the risk. So I hope that makes sense. But the Canadian is famous for those type of moves. Again, buy the rumor, sell the fact. Or if the price is going down at that time and they're expecting a negative, it would be sell the fact, buy the rumor, and turn it around. And so don't get caught off guard by that. You can very quickly see profits wiped away because you didn't understand the fundamentals and you didn't see the pattern, and you're just jumping on a moving freight train that was about to come to a stop at the station and go back the other way, and you get caught off guard, and that's a tough way to take a loss. So anyways, guys, that's the view right now. Again, we're 12 hours from this news, so I'm not saying for sure this is where this is going to go. I'll be obviously looking at this heading into the news tomorrow morning when, maybe an hour, certainly that hour before, I'll be taking another look and seeing where things are at. But the early view to me looks like at least a short-term sell-off in the Canadian, and so pairs like the pound Canadian would rally. And if the price of oil does in fact begin to come down, especially heading into that news, let's say tomorrow morning there's a sell-off in any of the oil futures, that certainly would put pressure on the Canadian. But more importantly, I think the Bank of Canada statement is going to be important. The market, I think, is expecting a neutral tone, maybe a little bullish tone, since there's been some good data lately. So if they're still kind of bearish, kind of like what happened with the Kiwi dollar, the Kiwi dollar last week, then we'll see a nice sell-off. So anyways, guys, I hope that helped. Let me know. You can leave a comment below the video, or if you're on the Forex Gods page, Facebook page, then please feel free to hit me up there. And for those of you that I sent emails to in the last week, if you have my email, you can always send me an email too. All right, guys, have a good night, and we will catch up with you tomorrow. Maybe do a review of this once it's all said and done. All right, thanks.